Welcome in. Let's go.
What's poppin'?
What's going on? Happy Sunday, everybody.
Happy Sunday.
It was, I woke up today, totally forgot that it was daylight saving today. Lost an hour. I was like, did I really sleep 10 hours?
Dude, I didn't even know it was daylight saving time until you told me about 10 minutes ago. So, shows you how plugged in I am.
Your whole morning went by. Totally didn't even realize you lost an hour.
No, I've been productive as hell, man.
That's what we do here at the Face Mask Podcast. We grind. Welcome in, everybody. John Elsace, Nick Payne. On this daylight saving day switch, when we get some light back into our lives, some extra sunlight, right? We get that hour back of not darkness at the end of the day.
Not darkness. I like that. Very descriptive.
Not darkness. Yeah, we're moving right along, getting closer to spring, which means the NFL draft is coming up. Free agency is in 3 days, so there's some chaos there, and chaos to come, I should say. Before that happens, John, we got one of my favorite topics today, and you should jump on this train as soon as you can before any crazy things happen in either free agency or the draft, because this is when you can take advantage of what you know over some potential competition.
Yeah, today it's going to be an interesting format because it's basically just going to be a Q&A where I ask Nick 6 questions that I have that he doesn't know yet. He doesn't know about any of these questions, and I'm gonna throw a curveball at him first.
Oh boy, I have not been briefed on these.
But the general overall topic is best balls, you guys.
So, let's go.
Talking about our best balls.
I love best ball. I'm so happy. And if you play fantasy, you should love it too.
Well, first off, why don't you just tell people why? Just give them a quick 30-second synopsis on why you love best ball so much.
I like best ball because there's no in-season roster management. Once you draft your team, that's your team. There's nothing to do as far as injuries, as far as ad drops, as far as trades. Once you build your team on a week-to-week basis, your best performers will slot in as your starters. So there's no decisions to be made. It all hinges, it's all contingent upon your ability to draft well. If you draft well, if you're a player who typically feels good about their draft, maybe you make some in-season changes here and there, some ad drops here and there, but on the whole, you like the core of your team, and that usually stays the same. Best ball is for you because it's totally dependent on drafting the right players, finding the right players in each round, in each part of the draft, and building your roster with the correct amount of flexibility to account for a 16-week season where you don't really manage your team. So I love it. It's all about finding the right pieces, and then you just let the season play out. Everything else does the rest for you. That's why I like best ball so much. It's all about your ability to draft, and then you just kind of sit back and relax and let the show unfold.
Yeah, that's how you sold me on best balls, because I'd always heard you talk about them for like a year and a half. You talked about nothing but best balls, and I hadn't ever played it up till about 2 years ago. And I'm still not quite the same level as you, which is why we're doing this Q&A, because frankly, I want to learn more about this format in general.
Let's go. I'm ready. I am ready to share my knowledge, because in March and April and May, you should be playing.
So in the first and second and third round, mostly first and second, how do you approach the top 3 picks that you have as opposed to a redraft league? Do you diversify early? Do you go 0 RB, or are you a RB heavy kind of guy? What are your first 3 picks as far as positions coming out to, and who are you happiest if you were to come out of a 3-pick stretch in the beginning of your perfect best ball? Who would those players be in 2021?
So you don't deviate too much from a redraft strategy at the top of the draft. I would say the biggest difference is now more than ever, a redraft strategy that is pretty popular is to wait on a tight end and draft a couple late. In best ball, since the talent level at tight end is the most scarce of all positions, it makes a lot of sense to try to get a good one early. So if I have a pick in, 5th, 6th, 7th, pick of the first round, I'm looking at Travis Kelce. And not too much later, I'm looking at George Kittle. And again, not too much later than that, I'm looking at Darren Waller. If I end up with Darren Waller at the back end of the second round, I'm fine with that. Because you are going to have a significant advantage over a minimum of 9 other teams. So in the first round, if I don't end up with Kelce, I still look to try to get a running back because there are so many good wide receivers. All we hear, right, is that drafting wide receivers in the middle rounds makes a lot of sense. Well, guess what? In best ball, it makes even more sense to pass on the top wide receivers unless they fall and opt for a running back. I like to get at least one running back with my top 3 picks. The difference between best ball and redraft is I have no problem waiting on running back after I get that first one. So you want to find that anchor running back over an anchor wide receiver. That's my priority. And to that point, I would try to prioritize an anchor tight end over an anchor wide receiver. Because again, while awesome as it is to have Davante Adams, to have Tyreek Hill, to have a guy like Stephon Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to get significant value and really good players at the wide receiver position in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds when it's much dicier to draft other positions.
Or even later, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th rounds, 12th rounds.
There are wide receivers that come out of the woodwork all the time, and because running backs are so prioritized, they fall. They fall in the draft. So it's pretty easy to scoop them up. I think it makes sense at the top of the draft. I'm only drafting an anchor wide receiver if he falls to me and I'm not reaching. And I'm talking so with Davante Adams, he's the wide receiver 1 this year. If I have the 10th or 11th pick and he falls to me, then I might take him. But if I have the 7th, 8th, 9th pick where he's projected to go in redraft, I will opt for a running back. So I want that stud running back. I am hoping to get a stud tight end. And I will let the wide receivers go early and opt to try to stack more wide receivers later.
Now, complete swerve, but I just want to know, what is the best fantasy football team name you've ever come up with?
Well, this has nothing to do with
no,
best
not
ball,
at all. Not at all.
And you don't name your teams in best ball, but this past year in 2020, I had Paindemic as a play on words from the coronavirus pandemic. So I was pretty I felt good about that one. That was pretty creative of me. I don't know. There was that's probably, as far as recently, that's probably my favorite. I like that one.
Yeah, I can think of some of the other ones that you had, and they weren't exactly PG. So let's go with Paindemic. I like that one. So
that one was solid.
Next question. Back to the best balls. You've already touched on tight ends. You've already kind of touched on how you approach running backs in best balls and wide receivers to a certain extent. And before we dive into more of those positions, how do you address quarterback? Because we haven't heard you talk about quarterbacks at all.
So quarterback, generally speaking, in every single best ball format that I have seen, there are no super flex options for best ball, which is probably, that makes the most sense to account for injuries. There's only so many quarterbacks to go around. And when you can't manage your roster, that makes it that makes it potentially more difficult. So I've only ever seen one quarterback formats with best ball, which to me means you can apply pretty much the same strategy in redraft that you do in best ball. Now, maybe not to the same degree. You still want a good quarterback, right? You still want an anchor that doesn't cost too much money, or when I say money, I mean doesn't cost too much draft capital, that you know you can rely on week in and week out with rushing upside. So if a guy like Josh Allen falls to you in the 6th round in a best ball, you pounce on that. If Lamar Jackson falls to the 6th, 7th round, Dak Prescott, 6th, 7th round, you want those guys. Patrick Mahomes is still going kind of early, about the 4th round. That's still a little too rich for my blood for the QB1. But it's not an outrageous overpay in the 4th round. So the thing with quarterbacks is they are the most likely to give you pretty decent production even later in the draft. One of the things I learned over the past couple of years, though, is you don't want to wait too long for a quarterback. If you're not drafting a quarterback until, say, round 10, 11, 12, and you're grabbing a couple quarterbacks who you know will be fine, but maybe they're not league winners, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, actually. I think it now makes sense more than ever to target a quarterback relatively early, 6th, 7th round, and I would even say even the 5th round isn't too early if you feel as if a guy like Josh Allen is falling to you. And then get one a few rounds later to ensure the highest opportunity of upside at the position. If you're getting 2 really good guys instead of 2 just good guys, you know what I mean? Opting for better depth at other positions and waiting for quarterbacks later, that might actually hurt you because you're not going to be getting consistent high-end performances from consensus quarterback 2s. If you have a couple QB 2s, yeah, your running back and wide receiver depth might look awesome on paper. But if you're only getting 17, 18 points from the quarterback position most weeks when everybody else is getting 25, 26, and getting 30 burgers every now and then, you're going to be behind the 8 ball at the position. So you're going to spend up a little more in best ball than you are in redraft, but the strategy doesn't change too much. You can wait on quarterback, but you don't want to wait too long.
Like that?
Just like that.
Okay.
That's it.
Tricked you. All right. We're going to swerve again. Because I like to swerve. That's why you don't want to see me behind the wheel. It's great.
No, I'll take the reins on that one if I have to drive somewhere with you.
All right. Best fantasy pick you've ever made.
Ever?
In all of the leagues that you've ever been in, what is the one pick where you're just like, yeah, that's the pick that won me that year?
Damn. I would say, it's a pick, not like an in-season pickup?
No, it's a pick.
A draft pick. You know what my best pick probably was? In 2015, when I won our keeper league, I drafted Devontae Freeman in the 12th round, and he was the overall RB1 that year.
Yeah, wow.
I think I would have to go with that.
How the mighty have fallen. But yeah, I remember that season. He came out of nowhere, and he was just...
He was a rookie that year. Tevin Coleman was the projected starter, and I can't even tell you where Coleman went in that draft, but Freeman was the next in line, and I can't even tell you that he was a specific target for me. I saw him, I figured, all right, there might be a decent opportunity down there in Atlanta. Lo and behold, Tevin Coleman got hurt by week 2. Freeman entered the starting lineup and exploded for the first 4 or 5 weeks and never lost the job.
All right, to bring that back to 2021, who's a guy that you think you can get in the 12th round at the running back position who can do exactly the same thing that Devonta Freeman did?
Okay. Full circle. Okay, yeah, all right. So, the thing about best ball is you're actually in my mind, you're more likely to find a decent value at a position like running back in the 12th round than, say, the 6th, 7th, 8th round. Those are the rounds I want to draft my wide receivers. I don't want to draft my running backs in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Usually that is the area of the draft where there's like, retreads, guys who aren't really, they're not really the top options that they used to be. But as far as getting a guy pretty late, someone you can get kind of late, I would say that the guy who's got consistently good year in, year out upside at this point is Alexander Mattison, because Dalvin Cook is an injury risk and has missed time every single year that he's played, at least 1 or 2 games. In best ball, I don't want handcuffs, right? So if I draft Dalvin Cook at, say, 1.2, I'm not going to draft Alexander Mattison because I'm going to be relying on my thought process in that specific instance is I'm hoping Dalvin Cook stays healthy. That's what I drafted him for. I don't want to handcuff who, let's say Dalvin Cook is healthy 12 out of 16 weeks. 12 out of 16 weeks, Alexander Madison's not going to be an option at all. But if I don't draft Dalvin Cook, and I'm looking for some running back depth that I'm not relying on a week-to-week basis, but if the circumstances play out in Alexander Madison's favor, he's a league winner because he's going to get the same amount of volume that Cook would get. Give me the guy who has a chance at an RB1 workload if the starter goes down over a guy who has a guaranteed third down role, let's say. Like a third down back will be involved every game, and he might put up 6, 7 points. Maybe he gets you 11 or 12 here and there, maybe a 15er in there. I don't want that guy. I want the guy who, if he ends up in the lead role and the path there is not too difficult, he will have an RB1 workload. So a guy like Madison makes a lot of sense. Trying to think who else is in that
would
area.
Darrington Evans and Keyshawn Vaughn fit the mold there as 2 running backs who are technically the number 2s in those offenses, where if the number 1 were to go down, they would get the majority of the work?
Sure. I mean, you're on the right track as far as your line of thinking. As far as Tennessee goes, I know that they have a few pieces in that backfield now behind Derrick Henry. Yeah, so it could be a bit of a committee if Henry were to miss time, but yeah, you're on the right track. You would want the guy who you think in that scenario, if Henry were to go down or miss time, who would step into the number 1 role, the 1A role, so to speak, of a committee. So Evans makes sense there. Who's the other guy you said?
Donta Foreman.
Oh,
Donta Foreman.
You were talking about Keyshawn Vaughn. Yeah, I guess that would depend on what happens with Leonard Fournette. He's definitely worth a gamble, a guy like Vaughn is, because he's dirt cheap and you could get him at the end of the draft. I'm just not sure. The jury's out on him. That's all. He's a little bit more of an unknown. Yes, it makes sense to try to find guys who are tied to good offenses, and the Bucs should be a good offense in 2021, but his role is less defined because we didn't really see anything from him in his rookie season. Maybe that changes because Bruce Arians is notoriously a guy who doesn't play rookies a ton, and now Vaughn will be going into his second season. Definitely a viable option. He's no more than an RB5 though. No more than an RB5. I'm looking for opportunity at this point. At this point in the draft, I'm saying to myself, who's a guy who maybe the team's not great, but this guy has an opportunity because there's simply nobody else in front of him. I'm looking at the wide receivers on the Detroit Lions. I'm looking at Quintez Cephas. I'm looking at Tyrell Williams. These guys are dirt cheap. You're not going to have to overpay for them. So, theoretically, at least one of those guys is a starter. I'm hoping it's Cephas because he's younger. I would think that in a rebuilding year for the Lions, which 2021 will presumably be for them, they're going to want to get as long of a look at their young players as they possibly can. So Cephas is definitely a guy that I like. Right now, I don't think that the Lions are going to bring in a big name at the wide receiver position. They've already said that Kenny Golladay they're not franchise tagging him. In all likelihood, he is gone. So to me, and then on top of that, with a team that has so many needs, they may not prioritize wide receiver in Detroit. Cephas is going to get every opportunity. So I definitely like a guy like that. Another guy late. Oftentimes you can find guys coming off of injury from the previous season. We just got done talking about Dak Prescott returning to the Cowboys. Well, guess who else is returning to that offense? Blake Jarwin, the projected starter last year, went down week 1. He's going to be back in an offense that will be throwing the ball a ton. So a guy like Jarwin, late round value. He's a guy where, that's your tight end too. You draft a high tight end like I suggested, like a Kelsey, a Kittle, a Darren Waller. You can wait for the rest of the draft to take a guy like Blake Jarwin as your tight end too. There's lots of tight ends that are down there in that end of the draft. Ideally, it's your tight end 3. Maybe it's your tight end 2 if you get a stud, but these are the types of lottery tickets that can pay huge dividends because their ADP plummeted just because they got hurt the previous year. You want to find guys who seemingly have a great opportunity ahead of them. Again, maybe it's not the best team, the best offense, but there's nobody ahead of them on the depth chart. Or a guy that's coming off of an injury, still relatively young. Obviously, you want to avoid older players coming off of injuries because the chance of re-injury is seemingly higher. Not in every situation, but in a lot. But young players coming off injury, like a Jarwin, attached to what should be a good offense in Dallas.
Oh man, I kind of feel like I want to go right now on the FanDuel and try out some of these strategies that you just threw out, because it's got my mind turning.
Yeah, there's plenty of options. There's plenty of platforms that offer best balls. Best Ball 10s, FanDuel, DraftKings, they all offer different options. Some of them are full PPR, some of them are half PPR, some of them include team defense, which then the draft goes to 20 rounds instead of 18. So you'd have to, draft a defense or two. It's awesome. I love Best Ball. It's my favorite format to play.
I love Best Ball, but one of the things that I love more than picking a roster and watching it succeed is making trades to help your roster succeed, because I like the human interaction there. With that said, what is the best fantasy trade that Nick Payne has ever made?
The best trade I've ever made.
The best trade where you look back and you say, that trade made my season, made my year that year. That trade brought me to the championship.
I mean, I had one once again, going back to 2015, the year I drafted Devontae Freeman. I also made a trade that year to acquire D'Angelo Williams after Le'Veon Bell went down. This was when they were still Pittsburgh Steelers. We're dating ourselves at this point.
Wasn't that long ago, bro? Come on.
It's long enough. Traded for D'Angelo Williams. I think I gave up Cam, which it was his MVP season. But I also had the Roethlisberger Antonio Brown stack, so Cam was expendable for me. And I gave up Jarvis Landry for D'Angelo Williams, who was locked into a top 5 running back situation as far as I was concerned at the time. A couple other pieces were thrown in there just to make the numbers work, but yeah, I added D'Angelo Williams. This was after Le'Veon Bell went down, and also I also had a running back go down at that time, so I had a need for my playoff run. Acquired Williams, made it to the championship, and he scored over 30 fantasy points in week 16. So that was That was one of my best, and I won the league. So that's probably one of the better trades that I made.
Oh man, I remember those days where whoever was playing as the RB1 for the Steelers was an RB1 in fantasy football.
Yep.
That was pretty much any time pre James Conner. James Conner came in and kind of just like ruined that whole trend.
He had 1 year. He had 1 year.
Yeah.
He was very good that 1 year.
Don't want to go there. I was too invested in him, and now it's like but whatever. Props to you for picking up. So for making the shrewd trade there. I remember that year you won that. You won the league that year.
I did. Yeah, that one felt good.
Well, that's it as far as questions for best ball and questions for Nick. That's it. That's all I got. Short notice.
Yeah, no, I was like, I hope the surprise in that question was the tip that I was unaware of what questions were going to be thrown at me today. I appreciate this opportunity to kind of give my take on best ball and some of the strategies that I like. If I have a couple minutes, I'll just say a couple of things if I can.
Go for it. Do it.
And then we'll wrap this up.
Do it.
One of my favorite things to do, if I don't have to reach, if I don't have to force something to make it happen, don't ever force anything. Let the draft come naturally, organically. Don't reach for the sake of reaching. But stacking is one of the most effective best ball strategies you can do. I'm specifically talking about a quarterback wide receiver or quarterback tight end connection. If you can organically make a stack happen, your chances of winning, your win rate automatically go up with a stack. It's not a guarantee, but the likelihood of you coming out in the top 4 and therefore either winning your money back or making a profit, your chances go up naturally just by stacking. The other day, I did a best ball. I had the 8th pick. So on the turnaround in the second round, I guess I was around like 2.4, 2.5. This was a 12-person draft. I got Stephon Diggs. He fell to me. I know that I typically try to say opt for running backs or even an elite tight end at that point in the draft, but again, sometimes things just organically happen. Got Diggs about 5 picks after his ADP. That's big at a spot like in the second round. And then at the end of the 5th round, Josh Allen fell to me. It was a layup. It was the easiest call I could make. Allen was about 12, 13 spots below his ADP. So he fell significantly. I already had Diggs. I didn't even care what the rest of the board looked like. I didn't care what my other options were. I didn't even bother looking because I was able to build an elite stack without having to try. It fell into my lap. So don't force it, but stacks, it is...
Can you speak mathematically to what the difference is between getting Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen versus Stephon Diggs and Kyler Murray?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you can get a QB1 and wide receiver 1 stack, the win rate is about like your win rate percentages are about 9%. That's excellent compared to looking at other scenarios as far as best ball win, like your chances of winning, depending on what the rest of your team looks like.
Okay.
Like the optimal strategy is obviously picking individual players.
Is it because
But if you can stack them without forcing it, it's a huge advantage.
Because if you're relying on that wide receiver 1 or something to produce and they don't produce, you know that the quarterback likely produced with other players.
Right.
And you're kind of...
Exactly.
Even if you don't get the super boom weeks where Josh Allen passed 2 touchdowns to Stephon Diggs and you both boomed, even if Stephon Diggs doesn't get that touchdown and doesn't get that 10 receptions, 140 yards or whatever, if he only gets 70 yards on 5 receptions or something, low game for Stephon, you still have Josh Allen producing in other ways with other players to kind of balance it all out for you.
Yes, you nailed it. You nailed it. Stacking players, and this is key too, on offenses that you think are going to be good. Yeah, you just spelled it all out. If you think in this scenario, for example, the Bills' offense is going to be good, you are going to be the direct beneficiary of the quarterback of that good offense. And if you can pair him, maybe you miss on Diggs, but you're able to get both Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis. While it may not look pretty when you're comparing your lineup to other teams' wide receiver depth, who cares? You have good players attached to a good offense, and they will all produce at some point in the season, and that will all balance itself out. That's what you're looking for. If you stack on an offense where you don't think it's going to be as good, well, then the win rate might not be as high. But if you are able to establish a stack on an offense that you think will be successful, yes, you reap the benefits not of just the boom weeks, but just the week-to-week consistency in general is a huge advantage over the competition.
Very good information in though. I will definitely take note of that moving forward whenever.
Yeah, so like if you draft Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb in the 4th round, go take Dak. If you get Lamar Jackson in the 6th round, there's a good chance you can get Hollywood Brown a round later. I know that one is a little more dicey because it's a low-volume passing offense, but it's still a stack on an offense that should be good. So that's one thing. The last thing I will say about...
Just a quick segue. Okay. With that said, with Lamar Jackson, do you think it would be a good idea to more stack a running quarterback within a running-oriented offense with another running back in terms of Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards?
Well, ideally, J.K. Dobbins is the stack.
Right.
But yes, yeah, that works as well because they'll work in tandem. One of them will get the production. It's a guarantee. Regardless of what happens, either Dobbins or Lamar, if not both, are going to have a good day on the ground. So if you have both, this is a situation where a stack, if one of the two players pops off, but the other one has a middling game, or God forbid worse, it's not going to hurt you as bad because you have the piece between the two of them that did well that week. So yes, play the game. And what I mean by that is look at that offense. If you think the offense is going to be good, play to the strengths of that offense. So if it's a good passing offense, get the quarterback and the wide receivers. If it's a good rushing attack, get the quarterback with the running backs. So yeah, you're on the right path there.
Boom. Thank you.
Yeah. Last thing, real quick. Bye weeks are overrated. The pros don't give a shit about bye weeks. If I have two quarterbacks and they both have a week 9 bye, and week 9 I'm going to take a 0 at the quarterback position, that's not going to hurt you as bad as you might think. Boom. It all levels out. It all balances out. Bye weeks are overrated. When you're building your team, I would encourage you to not even look at that. Don't even look at bye weeks. Now, obviously, if your whole team is out week 12, that's going to kind of suck for that week. But it all balances out in the end.
Where else are you going to get this content, man?
Nowhere.
Boom.
Nowhere else.
Killing them.
But yeah, that's all I got. I could talk about this all day. I will spare everybody from that. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk some best ball strategy, some overarching strategies that I like to abide by when I'm building best ball teams, which I'm probably going to do later today at least once.
Yeah, we're going to start giving you a little bit more format-specific content moving forward. So we're going to have some best ball dedicated videos, some dynasty dedicated videos, some redraft dedicated videos for you guys. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Face Mask Podcast. If you agree with us, put your thoughts in the comment section below. If you don't, tell us why in the comment section below, and have a great day.
Good Lord, Jandis!
I've been saving that for you.
Farted right into my butthole. It's like a fart transplant.